Taliban has appointed several hardline members to Afghanistan's caretaker government. Among those appointed to the new interim cabinet as senior minister is Sirajuddin Haqqani, who is on the FBI's most wanted list. With us is former UK ambassador to Afghanistan, Sir Nick Kay. Hello to you, Sir Nick. Thank you for joining us on the programme this morning. Does this mean that terrorists are in charge of Afghanistan?
Indeed, I think half of the individuals out of the 30 named yesterday are on UN sanctions lists. Indeed, the Haqqani network is a proscribed terrorist organization in the United States and in many countries. And the leader of the Haqqani group is now the Minister of Interior. I think this is a phenomenally silly thing for the Taliban to do. It's a strategic mistake. They had the chance to set up a reasonably inclusive government, to bring in other figures, other parties, other ethnic groups, and they have failed to do that. I think it's a flaw in their makeup. They are single-minded, uncompromising, and it's probably a sign of weakness as well, because they have internal divisions. They've had to satisfy all their internal groups by appointing them to different jobs.
Strategic mistake or deliberate decision?
It's a deliberate decision, but as I say, I think it may sow the seeds eventually for failure, because nobody can govern sustainably Afghanistan unless the government reflects the diversity of the country. When people look at the government, they want to see themselves reflected. And now 30 people have been appointed who are from the Pashtun ethnic group, and only 3 are non-Pashtuns. That immediately is a non-inclusive government.
Where does that leave Western democracies trying to deal with Afghanistan?
Yeah, it makes it harder. That's why I say it's a real, sort of mistake by the Taliban. They, if they had been able to present a reasonably, credibly inclusive face to the world, I think they would have found the reception much easier. But now governments will find it very hard, indeed, in some cases, legally impossible to engage with this government. That doesn't mean that we should be isolating them. And I certainly firmly believe that at working level, not at full ambassadorial level, we should have a presence there. Why? Because we need eyes and ears on the ground to see what's happening. At the moment, we rely on the very good reporting from the international media, who are the glare of media publicity, I think, is curbing a little bit some of the Taliban excesses in Kabul. But it shouldn't be just the media. I think we need eyes and ears of diplomats as well.
Yeah, they say the government is not tribal. This is the Taliban, quoting the Taliban this morning. And it will represent all Afghanis, except women, it would appear at this stage.
There are no women in those top government appointments whatsoever at all. And it is women that you can see now every day on the streets of Kabul and other cities, Herat as well, protesting against the Taliban. Incredibly brave women. And I think, what this is a sign is Afghanistan really has changed. The Taliban may not have changed, haven't changed. Afghanistan has. This is now a Facebook generation. Everybody is linked in on smartphones, etc. Not just within Afghanistan, people know what's going on, but across the world as well. And the Taliban are going to have to adapt to that new reality if they want to sustain their power.
We've also been hearing from NGOs on the ground in Afghanistan, and they're telling us that basic services are not working as they should, that food is running out, and 18 million people are desperately in need of aid. One wonders how it could deteriorate so quickly and how much blame the West really does need to accept for what's happening in Afghanistan today.
I think there's plenty of blame to go round for everyone. The humanitarian situation was pretty bad before the Taliban offensive, a combination of climate change that's affected, climate patterns, so drought and floods in some places. The conflict for 20 years has definitely, limited the economy, limited agricultural production as well. So combination of things means that the country is facing enormous humanitarian challenges. And I very much welcome the fact that the UN relief chief was in Kabul 2 days ago to start conversations about how the international community can provide aid to keep Afghans alive. And that, I think, is really important. We need to sort of differentiate that aid for humanitarian purposes from any aid to help improve the country over the long term. That development aid, I think, is not on the agenda for now, particularly with the government that has been appointed yesterday. But humanitarian aid shouldn't be politicized, and we should work through the UN with that.
We need to keep an eye on what's going on with other nations as well, don't we? China, just speaking to the Reuters news agency, a Foreign Office Ministry spokesperson for the Chinese, saying we're ready to maintain communication with the new Afghan government and leader. They're keen to fill that vacuum that's been left.
China has a border, as we know, with Afghanistan. They have a long-term interest in what happens in Afghanistan because of the repercussions potentially upon its Muslim population in China. So yes, they will continue to play an interest. I read the Chinese response as relatively muted in a way that I haven't seen China or Pakistan or any other countries really rushing into a very, very fulsome welcome or embrace of this new government. I think it will give everyone a pause for thought. This is not the inclusive government that I believe even Pakistan, for example, was calling for. We do need to watch that.
Yeah. So Nick, obviously the war in Afghanistan started 20 years ago in October of 2001 as a result of what happened on 9/11. Do you remember where you were when you heard the news?
For 9/11, yes, I remember. I was working in the Foreign Office here in London in the policy planning staff. It was certainly a very dramatic moment for the whole world, obviously, for the tragedy. But, for people working on foreign policy, it was a moment at which we went into overdrive in terms of, what on earth does this mean and how is it going to impact on everything we do? Very quickly, it became obvious that, nothing was going to be the same post 9/11. And indeed, for the last 20 years, we can see that.